The war had ended, but its echoes lingered across the galaxy. Smoke still curled from the ruins of Xylar cities, and countless worlds were left scarred by the conflict that had spanned decades. The human fleet had emerged victorious, though at a tremendous cost. Entire colonies had been lost, starships destroyed, and countless lives sacrificed to ensure the survival of humanity and its allies. Captain Ethan Rains was one of the survivors, a human soldier who had earned the respect and admiration of everyone who had fought beside him. He had seen death up close, made choices that weighed heavily on his conscience, and yet somehow he had lived. Ethan's reputation had preceded him as he made his way to Aurelian Prime, a massive orbital station floating in the neutral zone between the human-controlled sectors and the remnants of Xylar space. The station was enormous, a city in orbit, bustling with diplomats, merchants, and representatives from dozens of alien species. Humans and aliens alike moved through its corridors, their faces showing exhaustion, relief, and cautious optimism. It was here that the Council of the Interstellar Coalition met to decide the fate of war survivors and distribute rewards for extraordinary service. Ethan had expected medals, commendations, perhaps even a promotion. What he did not expect was Liara. She was presented to him formally, in a chamber filled with council representatives from every major species in the coalition. Ethan barely had time to register her appearance before he noticed the murmurs. She was unlike any alien he had encountered. Tall and graceful, with silver-hued skin that seemed to catch the light, she moved with a poise that was almost regal. Her long hair, darker than the void of space itself, framed a face of sharp intelligence and calm determination. Her violet eyes were striking, large, expressive, and seeming to peer into the soul of anyone who met her gaze. "Captain Rains," the council speaker said, his voice echoing slightly in the chamber. "In recognition of your service during the Galactic War, you are being awarded a personal aid from the Xylar Dominion. She has been identified as Liara, a former strategist and scholar of the Xylar military. She refused orders to destroy civilian populations and was consequently enslaved by her own people. She is now under your command." Ethan felt a tight knot form in his stomach. "A slave?" he asked cautiously, glancing at Liara. She did not flinch. She did not bow. She simply regarded him with the same calm, steady gaze she had worn since stepping into the room. "Yes," the speaker said. "Her service will assist you in rebuilding efforts and provide tactical insight from her experience with the Xylar Empire. The Council expects you to train and supervise her integration into human operations." Ethan hesitated, looking at her. There was something in her posture that suggested she would not be easily controlled, that she had a mind of her own. That perhaps was why she had survived the Xylar Empire's cruelty. "I understand," Ethan said finally, though his voice betrayed uncertainty. "I will take responsibility." Liara inclined her head slightly. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm, steady, and perfectly understandable in Galactic Common. "I will serve to the best of my ability, Captain Rains," she said, but her tone carried no submission, only a recognition of duty and practicality. The council murmured approval, though some of the representatives looked uneasy. To them, this was a reward, a symbol of dominance over a defeated race. To Ethan, it felt like something else entirely, a puzzle, a challenge, and perhaps, if he was honest, an opportunity to make a difference in someone's life. The journey back to Earth was long, and for much of it, Ethan and Liara sat in silence. She studied the stars with a quiet intensity, her mind clearly working through calculations or strategies he could not begin to understand. Occasionally, she spoke, asking technical questions about human technology or offering insights on fleet logistics. Ethan answered when he could, though often he simply observed her. She was like a living library of knowledge, but with a presence that demanded respect rather than fear. Their first real conversation came when they were passing through a neutral sector known for pirate activity. Ethan had expected hostility, but the sector seemed calm. Still, he could not help but test her. "Do you know how to handle yourself in a fight?" he asked cautiously. Liara looked at him, her eyes narrowing slightly, though not with anger. "I have been trained in Xylar combat protocol, Captain. I can defend myself and I can assist you in defending others. If your concern is my ability to survive, it is unnecessary." Ethan was impressed. Few humans could maintain composure under his questioning, and yet she had not flinched, not once. He realized that she was not just intelligent, she was confident, disciplined, and fully aware of her own capabilities. It was clear that any attempt to dominate her would fail. She would not yield out of fear. When they arrived on Earth, Ethan introduced Liara to his command unit. The reactions varied. Some soldiers were wary, some curious, and some openly hostile. Liara met each with calm politeness, never overstepping but never shrinking either. She assessed the unit quickly, noting strengths, weaknesses, and potential strategies for improving efficiency. Within hours, her input was already shaping operations. It became clear to Ethan that she was more than a reward, more than a slave. She was a strategist, a thinker, and possibly a key to ensuring that humanity could rebuild faster than the coalition had expected. But he also sensed a deeper layer, a history of suffering, of defiance against her own people, and a longing for freedom that she could not yet claim in this new world. Late one evening, after the unit had finished training exercises and the station had quieted, Ethan found Liara alone on the observation deck. She stared at the stars, her violet eyes reflecting distant suns and swirling nebulae. "You've been through a lot," Ethan said softly, approaching her. "I can't imagine what it must have been like, being treated as property by your own people." Liara did not turn to face him immediately. She seemed to consider her response carefully. "It was a reality I could not change," she said finally. "The Xylar Empire did not value those who disobeyed orders, and I had no choice but to survive. To obey would have meant the death of innocents. To resist meant death for me. I chose survival and principle, even if it meant slavery." Ethan nodded slowly, understanding more than he could express. "Surviving is not weakness," he said. "It takes courage to stand by your principles, even when the consequences are dire. Most humans would not have lasted 1/10 of the trials you endured." Liara's lips curved in a faint smile. "Perhaps that is why I am here," she said softly. "Not as a slave, but as someone who can contribute. Perhaps the galaxy has finally found a place where my choices matter, rather than simply being punished for them." There was a long silence between them. Ethan realized that he could no longer see her as a possession, a reward, or even a subordinate. She was a person, fully human in intellect and spirit, though alien in form. And yet she had been handed to him in a context that implied ownership, a reminder that even after war, the galaxy's morality was complicated, messy, and not always fair. Over the following weeks, Ethan began integrating Liara into human operations. She quickly became indispensable. Her understanding of Xylar machinery allowed them to repair ships that had lain dormant since the war, and her tactical advice prevented numerous accidents and security breaches. Yet, with every accomplishment, the bond between Ethan and Liara shifted subtly. It was not friendship, not yet, but there was a mutual respect that grew with each challenge they faced together. The soldiers began to notice. Some still whispered behind their backs, questioning whether Ethan could trust a former Xylar. Others watched with grudging admiration as she assisted in planning missions and safeguarding colonies. No one could deny that her contribution saved lives, yet old prejudices were slow to fade. One day, an urgent message arrived from a colony on the edge of human space. A Xylar remnant faction had launched a sudden raid, targeting supply lines and communication hubs. Ethan and his team were dispatched immediately. Liara accompanied them, analyzing the enemy patterns and predicting their movements. The battle was unlike anything Ethan had faced before. The Xylar raiders were brutal, precise, and well-equipped. His team was outnumbered, and conventional tactics failed. But Liara stepped forward, taking command of defensive drones, activating automated turrets, and directing units with precision that surpassed even Ethan's expectations. She was not a slave. She was a commander, a strategist, and a force to be reckoned with. By the time the battle ended, hundreds of lives had been saved. Ethan realized something important. The Council's framing of her as a reward was entirely wrong. Liara was not property. She was a warrior, a partner, and possibly the greatest asset humanity had gained from the war, not a prize, but a person with agency, intellect, and courage. As they returned to their base, Ethan understood the truth. This was not a story of a soldier receiving a reward. It was the beginning of a partnership, unequal in appearance perhaps, but equal in spirit. Liara had survived the horrors of slavery, the tyranny of an empire, and now she was free to choose her own path. And in the vast expanse of the galaxy, where trust was rare and loyalty rarer, Ethan realized he had found someone whose strength might one day match his own. He looked at her, and she looked back, and in that silent exchange, both understood that the rules of their relationship had shifted. The Council could decree she was a slave. The galaxy could whisper its judgments, but neither could dictate the bond that was quietly forming. In the aftermath of war, amid the ruins of civilizations and the scars of countless battles, something new was beginning. An alliance built not on fear or ownership, but on mutual respect, intelligence, and the unspoken possibility of trust. And so, amidst the stars, Captain Ethan Rains and Liara, the alien strategist who had survived her own empire, began their journey together. The galaxy was vast, the threats still many, and the wounds of war far from healed. Yet in the quiet moments between chaos and duty, a human and an alien had found the first seeds of understanding, and perhaps the first hints of something far greater than either had imagined. The weeks following the Xylar raid were tense. Humanity was rebuilding, but remnants of the defeated empire still lurked in shadowed sectors of the galaxy, waiting for any opportunity to strike. Captain Ethan Rains and Liara had become a formidable team. Their mutual respect had grown into a cautious partnership, though neither would admit it aloud. In the eyes of many, Liara was still a slave, a gift from the Council, but Ethan had begun to see her differently. She was no reward. She was a strategist, a warrior, and a being whose intellect and insight often saved his soldiers' lives. The first major test of their partnership came sooner than either expected. A distress signal arrived from a remote human colony on the edge of a neutral system. The communication was fragmented, a garbled transmission that spoke of attackers, captured civilians, and failing defenses. Ethan knew instantly that waiting for reinforcements would mean disaster. He and Liara assembled a strike team and launched in one of the newly repaired human cruisers, moving through the dark void with urgency. Liara had been studying the patterns of Xylar attacks for weeks, analyzing their tendencies and predicting their next moves. On the bridge, she tapped into the ship's sensors and tactical displays, her fingers dancing over the controls with precise, fluid movements. "They are splitting into 3 units," she said calmly. "One is targeting the supply depot, another is approaching the residential sector, and the last is attempting to disable the colony's communications array. Their formation is designed to confuse defenders and divide forces." Ethan nodded. "Then we split as well. You take the supply depot and secure civilians. I'll handle the communications array and intercept the main assault." "Understood." Liara's eyes flickered, calculating options. "Understood, Captain, but allow me to assist you at the communications array. I can anticipate their strategies more quickly than your human sensors alone." He hesitated only a moment before agreeing. Trust was not easily given, but in this case it was necessary. Very well, let's move. The battle that followed was brutal. Xylar forces were relentless, using advanced cloaking drones, automated weapon platforms, and precision strikes that forced Ethan's team to adapt on the fly. Liara moved among the soldiers, issuing commands and activating defenses with calm authority. She was not shouting orders. She was coordinating, predicting enemy movements, and responding to threats before they materialized. Within minutes, Ethan realized that without her, the mission would have ended in catastrophe. At the supply depot, Liara guided the human forces with near-perfect precision. She analyzed weak points in the enemy's formation, directing automated turrets and drones to intercept attacks. Civilians were evacuated efficiently, and no one was lost under her guidance. She moved among the soldiers with a fluid confidence, her presence commanding attention not through intimidation, but through competence. Even the most skeptical human officers could not deny her skill. Meanwhile, Ethan confronted the main Xylar assault with a mix of strategy and brute force. His human instincts allowed him to improvise, to react to unexpected threats, while Liara's insight predicted the enemy's next moves. Together, they functioned like a single unit. When a hidden Xylar drone attempted to flank Ethan, Liara directed defensive fire that destroyed it before it could strike. When a wave of enemy soldiers breached the communications hub, Ethan relied on Liara's guidance to coordinate the defense. By the end of the engagement, the colony was safe. Supplies were intact, civilians were unharmed, and the Xylar attackers had been repelled. Ethan surveyed the aftermath and realized that Liara had not just assisted. She had saved lives, altered the course of the battle, and done so with a calm that none of his human officers could match. As they returned to the cruiser, Ethan finally allowed himself to speak freely. Liara, you were incredible out there. You saved hundreds of lives today, not just with your knowledge, but with how you commanded the forces. You're more than anyone could have expected. Liara's expression remained calm, but her violet eyes glimmered with a hint of something softer. I did what was necessary, Captain. Survival is not a skill I choose to waste. Ethan chuckled, though the sound was tired. You make it sound like a simple task. To me, it was extraordinary. For a moment, the silence between them was comfortable. The stars outside the observation window moved slowly, distant and unfeeling, yet somehow reminding Ethan of how small and fleeting human lives could be. And yet, in this moment, he realized that the universe had given him something rare. An ally who was not only capable but willing to stand beside him, not as a subordinate, but as an equal in intellect and courage. The days that followed were filled with planning, reconstruction, and strategy. Liara's insights into Xylar technology allowed Ethan's team to repair ships faster than anyone had thought possible. Her understanding of enemy tactics prevented further raids and attacks, and slowly, skepticism from the human soldiers began to fade. Some of the officers who had openly questioned her presence began seeking her advice, realizing that her contributions were invaluable. But Liara's integration was not without its challenges. She was still technically a slave in the eyes of the Council, and some humans were uncomfortable with the idea of taking orders from someone who had been considered property. Liara, for her part, did not assert dominance but acted with quiet authority. She never demanded respect. She earned it, and those who resisted often found themselves facing outcomes more efficient than any argument. One evening, after a long day of strategic meetings and fleet inspections, Ethan found Liara alone in the training hall. She was analyzing a holographic display of Xylar troop movements, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. He watched her for a moment, noticing how focused and meticulous she was. Her dedication was remarkable, yet there was a shadow in her expression, a hint of fatigue, of memories weighed by experiences far beyond his understanding. "You've been working non-stop," he said gently. "You need rest, Liara. Even the strongest warriors need time to recover." She looked up, her violet eyes meeting his. "Rest is a luxury I can afford later, Captain. The Xylar remnants are patient, but I am faster. If we do not act now, more lives will be lost." Ethan nodded, understanding her determination. "I see that, but know this, you don't have to carry everything on your own. You have people who trust you, who want to help. Let them." Liara considered his words, then nodded slightly. "Perhaps you are right. I will allow assistance when necessary, but the responsibility remains mine until the threat is neutralized." In that moment, Ethan realized that Liara had been conditioned to bear burdens alone. Slavery had taught her to rely only on herself, to trust no one. Yet now, for the first time, she was experiencing cooperation, mutual respect, and the possibility of partnership. It was a small but significant step, and Ethan felt a quiet sense of pride. Their next mission brought them to a derelict Xylar research station in uncharted space. The station had been abandoned after the war, but sensors indicated activity within. Ethan suspected Xylar scouts were using it as a hideout. They approached cautiously, using stealth technology to avoid detection. Liara's experience with Xylar protocols allowed them to navigate the station undetected. Inside, the station was dark, corridors lined with alien technology that pulsed faintly. They encountered traps, automated defenses, and decoy signals, but Liara anticipated every obstacle. She disarmed security drones with precise movements, guided Ethan through hidden passages, and identified areas where the Xylar could be hiding. In the control room, they found evidence of Xylar experiments, data logs showing plans for new weaponry and intelligence on human colonies. Liara's knowledge allowed them to extract the information without triggering alarms, and she even suggested ways to use the technology against potential threats in the future. As they prepared to leave, a sudden alarm blared. Hidden Xylar operatives had detected them, and the station was locking down. Ethan drew his weapon, and Liara activated emergency protocols. Together, they fought their way through waves of enemies, using a combination of human tactics and Xylar technology. Liara's combat skills were precise and lethal, yet controlled. She neutralized threats without unnecessary risk to her allies. After what felt like hours, they reached the ship and escaped just as the station's main reactor began to overload. Ethan looked at Liara, catching her eye as they cleared the station. "You were incredible," he said again, a hint of awe in his voice. "I don't think I've ever seen anyone move like that." Liara's expression remained calm, though a faint smile touched her lips. "I did what was required. Survival, strategy, and efficiency are lessons I have learned over a lifetime." Ethan nodded, but he knew it was more than efficiency. She had evolved beyond the role the council had given her. She was not a slave, not a reward, not a tool. She was a warrior, a partner, and a force that could not be ignored. That night, as they traveled back to human-controlled space, Ethan realized that the galaxy had given him something extraordinary. He had received what the council called a reward, but in reality, he had gained an ally unlike any other. Someone who could think, fight, and survive in ways that surpassed even the best human soldiers. Someone whose intellect and courage could shape the future of humanity itself. And in the quiet moments between missions, when the stars stretched endlessly beyond the hull of the ship, Ethan and Liara began to understand each other in ways that words could not fully capture. Trust had begun to grow where suspicion had once lived. Respect had replaced fear. And in the vast emptiness of space, two beings, one human, one alien, had discovered a connection that transcended ownership, duty, and even the scars of war. The galaxy was still dangerous. Xylar remnants remained, and threats of rebellion and attack lingered on distant worlds. But for the first time since the end of the war, Ethan felt a quiet confidence. With Liara at his side, humanity had more than weapons, more than ships, and more than soldiers. They had partnership, strategy, and intelligence that could outmatch even the most cunning enemy. And as the stars sped past their ship, Ethan allowed himself a rare moment of optimism. The war had ended, but the challenges of peace had just begun. And in that struggle, he was not alone. Liara would stand with him, not as a reward, not as a slave, but as someone who had earned her place through skill, courage, and sheer will. Together, they would face the galaxy's dangers. Together, they would shape the future. And together, they would prove that even in the wake of war, humanity, and those who chose to stand beside it, could rise stronger, wiser, and more united than anyone had ever imagined. The galaxy was quiet, but the calm was fragile. Even months after the war's end, Xylar remnants remained dangerous. They were scattered, hiding in uncharted sectors, waiting for the right moment to strike. Captain Ethan Rains and Liara had become an unstoppable team, human courage complemented by alien brilliance, but they knew the real test was yet to come. The intelligence network detected unusual activity on a distant moon in the Asterian sector. Automated sensors had picked up a Xylar warship, seemingly abandoned but radiating a dangerous energy signature. The fleet suspected a trap, but the potential knowledge and technology that could be recovered from the station were too valuable to ignore. Ethan volunteered immediately to lead a reconnaissance mission, insisting that Liara accompany him. She agreed without hesitation, her calm demeanor hiding the thrill of the challenge. As their ship approached the moon, Ethan studied the viewports. The surface was jagged, covered in metallic spires and black rock. The Xylar station floated above, a monolithic structure with shadowed corridors and glowing energy nodes. From experience, Ethan knew it would be difficult to navigate. Xylar stations were designed for defense, not hospitality. Liara joined him on the observation deck, analyzing the station with careful precision. The energy signatures indicate multiple levels of automated defense, she said. There is a high probability of traps, ambushes, and concealed enemies. The structure is designed to neutralize intruders without direct confrontation. Ethan nodded. Then we'll go in quietly. We avoid detection until we know exactly what we're facing. Landing was tricky. They guided their shuttle through the station's orbital defenses, using Liara's knowledge of Xylar technology to bypass sensors and shields. The moment their boots touched the cold metal floor of the station, the air felt tense, charged with potential danger. Ethan motioned for his team to move silently, and they advanced through dark corridors lined with alien machinery. Liara took the lead, her violet eyes scanning every sensor and panel. She identified weak points in the station's defenses, bypassing security locks and opening pathways that would have taken humans hours to decipher. The team moved efficiently, following her guidance, trusting her instincts. Suddenly, a series of alarms blared. Ethan cursed under his breath as automated drones activated, swarming from hidden vents. The team opened fire, but the drones were fast, resilient, and highly coordinated. Liara's eyes glinted with focus. She activated control panels, redirecting defensive turrets and drone swarms to neutralize threats. The battle was intense, a chaotic dance of human reflex and alien precision. Ethan fought alongside his soldiers, but it was Liara who turned the tide. She anticipated every move, predicting enemy patterns and instructing the humans to positions that maximized their efficiency. Every drone destroyed was calculated, every maneuver deliberate. By the time the battle ended, the station was silent once again. The team had survived and the threat had been neutralized. Ethan looked at Liara, admiration and relief mixing in his expression. "You saved us all," he said. "I don't know what we would have done without you." Liara's lips curved in a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "Survival is not a gift, Captain. It is earned through calculation, foresight, and the willingness to act decisively. We survived because we understood our opponent. They pressed deeper into the station, uncovering data cores filled with Xylar plans, blueprints for warships, and intelligence on potential threats to human colonies. Liara analyzed the information rapidly, her mind a living interface between human comprehension and alien logic. She highlighted strategies, identified weaknesses, and proposed methods to turn the enemy's technology against them. Ethan marveled at her ability to synthesize vast amounts of data in moments that would have taken human analysts weeks to process. But the station was not entirely abandoned. Hidden compartments revealed a small squad of Xylar soldiers in suspended animation, preserved for a final mission. Ethan considered their options. Releasing them could be dangerous, but leaving them dormant risked future attacks. Liara stepped forward, her hand hovering over the control panel. "I can neutralize them permanently, Captain," she said softly. "It is the most efficient solution to prevent future conflict." Ethan hesitated. Ethics weighed heavily on him. He had fought to protect lives, not destroy prisoners unnecessarily, but he also knew the risk they posed. He glanced at her, recognizing the difficult balance she carried. "Do what must be done," he said finally. With precision, Liara deactivated the pod safely, ensuring that no unintended harm came to the surrounding systems. The danger was gone, and the station was now secure. Ethan realized once again that she was not a mere tool. She was a decision-maker, capable of judgment, foresight, and responsibility. As they returned to their ship, Ethan allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. Liara had not just assisted in the mission. She had saved his life, the lives of his team, and possibly the future of countless colonies. The Council had called her a reward, but in reality she was a partner, a strategist, and a warrior of unparalleled skill. The line between master and servant, reward and possession, had been erased by competence, trust, and mutual respect. During the journey home, Ethan and Liara found a quiet moment together on the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly around them, serene and indifferent to the struggles of mortal lives. Ethan turned to her. "Liara, I've been thinking," he said. "You are no reward, you're no property, you're something far more important." Liara's violet eyes met his. "And what would that be, Captain?" she asked, her tone neutral but curious. "A partner," Ethan said simply. "Someone I trust, someone whose skills and judgment I rely on. Someone who chooses to stand with me not because they must, but because they want to." For a moment, silence hung between them. Then Liara inclined her head slightly, a subtle acknowledgement. "I choose to remain by your side," she said softly. "Not out of obligation, but because I see value in our cooperation, in the goals we share. I choose this path freely, Captain Rains." Ethan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. After months of war, uncertainty, and responsibility, he had finally found clarity. Their relationship was no longer defined by the Council's decrees or the expectations of others. It was defined by choice, respect, and mutual understanding. Over the following months, Ethan and Liara worked tirelessly to stabilize the galaxy. They rebuilt colonies, trained soldiers, and intercepted rogue Xylar factions attempting to regain lost ground. Each mission tested their partnership, and each time their trust in one another deepened. Liara continued to demonstrate skills that often surpassed human limits: strategic foresight, combat ability, and technological insight. But she also learned from Ethan. She began to understand human intuition, unpredictability, and the subtle nuances of decision-making under pressure. One day, during a mission on a remote mining colony, they encountered a situation that tested them in ways they had not anticipated. A Xylar remnant had captured the colony's workers, holding them in a heavily fortified complex. Ethan and Liara devised a plan that combined human ingenuity with alien technology. Liara analyzed the security systems and suggested a multi-pronged approach: one team to disable defenses, another to evacuate civilians, and a small strike team to neutralize the enemy leadership. The operation was tense, every second critical. Alarms blared, corridors were filled with patrolling Xylar soldiers, and automated defenses activated at unexpected moments. Ethan and Liara coordinated seamlessly, each anticipating the other's moves. Liara's instructions were precise, yet flexible, allowing Ethan to improvise when human unpredictability was required. By the end of the mission, the colony was safe. Every worker had been rescued, the Xylar operatives neutralized, and the colony's infrastructure largely preserved. The local population hailed Ethan and Liara as heroes. But more importantly, Ethan knew that their partnership had proven something greater than victory. It had shown that cooperation, trust, and respect could achieve what brute force alone could not. As they traveled back to the nearest human-controlled station, Ethan and Liara reflected on their journey. The galaxy was vast, filled with danger, uncertainty, and the remnants of war. But amidst the chaos, they had found something rare, a connection built on choice, competence, and understanding. Liara spoke quietly, her voice carrying an unusual softness. "I have lived under tyranny, under expectation, and under control. But with you, Captain, I have learned that my choices matter, that my decisions can shape outcomes, and that I am more than the labels others place upon me." Ethan placed a hand on the railing beside her, feeling the hum of the ship beneath them. "You've always been more than anyone could see, Liara. The galaxy just needed to understand it too." For the first time, she smiled fully, a gesture that seemed almost alien in its warmth. Perhaps the galaxy is finally learning. In the months that followed, Ethan and Liara continued their work, stabilizing systems, securing colonies, and guiding humanity into a new era of peace and strength. Their bond, forged in the fires of war, had evolved into a partnership built on equality and respect. And though challenges remained, Ethan knew that with Liara at his side, they could face anything the galaxy presented. The Council's reward had been intended as a symbol of conquest, a token of victory for a human soldier. Instead, it had become something far greater, a partnership, a friendship, and a testament to what humanity could achieve when it recognized the worth of others, even those from beyond the stars. And as the stars stretched endlessly outside their ship, Ethan and Liara stood together, not master and slave, not reward and recipient, but equals, two beings from different worlds, united by choice, courage, and the unshakable bond forged in the aftermath of war. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable, but in the wake of the Galactic War, a human soldier and a former alien slave had discovered something stronger than conquest: trust, respect, and the limitless potential of partnership. They were ready for whatever came next, side by side, and together they would shape the future of the stars.